What's the big difference between the Gozney Arc Lite and the Gozney Tread? Both are 12-inch ovens, but the Gozney Arc Lite is $100 less at full list price. So let's go over some of the feature differences as well as do some performance tests so that way you can decide which one to buy. And while they may look like they're the same size, they actually aren't. The stone in the Arc Lite is 16 inches deep, and in the Tread, it's only 15 inches deep. And that may not seem like very much, but the hardest part of placing a pizza is where it goes front to back. And you're way more likely to place the pizza too close to the front of the oven where the stone is a lot cooler. There's a pretty big difference between the front of the oven and the back, and that can mean that when it comes time to turn the pizza, it may not have crisped up all the way on the crust on the bottom, and you're gonna have a hard time turning it. So that extra inch gives you a lot more wiggle room to get it into the sweet spot. But before I get into the features, let's fire up the ovens and see how long it takes to get up to temperature, how hot they get, and of course, how long it takes to cool down in case you're taking it with you. That way you'll know how long you have to wait before you can put it back in your car. I'm using a data logger, and you don't want to use your normal probes. These ones are rated for up to 1200 degrees, so that way they'll withstand the heat of the pizza oven. And while that test is going, let's talk about a few of the differences between the ovens. And the first big difference that you'll notice will happen as soon as you go to light it, and that's because the Tread has a battery-powered igniter where when you turn the knob and get it to the ignite position, it will continue to click, and you'll hear those sparks going without having to do any other work. But on the Arc Lite, that spark is powered by turning the knob, and so you have to turn it, and it'll do a single spark. And in all my testing, the Arc Lite always lit in 1 or 2 tries, and so the benefits of both are really up to you. The Arc Lite, you never have to replace the battery, and on the Gozney Tread, you just hold the button down until it's lit. And another big difference is the Gozney Tread has a built-in temperature dial, which allows you to have a general idea of how hot it's cooking inside of the oven. The Arc Lite doesn't have one. Either way, you'll probably want to invest in an infrared thermometer in order to be able to measure the temperature of the stone anyway. The most important difference between the Tread and the Arc Lite comes to the form factor. The Gozney Tread is purpose-built to be able to take it with you on any of your adventures. In fact, I've taken it to the highest city in the United States, Leadville, Colorado, just so I could make pizza wherever I go, and that's one of the reasons why I bought this one. It also has a lot of other accessories that are available, like the tripod, the adventure carrying case, or a cutting board that you can put in between the handles on the Gozney Tread. But the most important difference is the Gozney Tread has those handles right there on the top, which makes it really easy to transport and move. And the other big difference is how they secure the stone. On the Arc Lite, it's just sent gently inside of the oven, but on the Gozney Tread, they have screws that hold it down so that way it stays in place. If you manage to tip the oven, throw it in the back of the car, it gets bounced around. It's made to be a lot more secure. And that's because the Arc Lite is designed to be used at home. And if you aren't careful with it, you might have the stone pop out and you break it. That's a risk that you could take because you can replace the stone. The one for the Tread is only about $40 on Gozney's website. Just because the Arc Lite isn't made to be transported, it doesn't mean that you can't. I took it on a 4-hour road trip just because my brother-in-law wanted to test it out, but I used the original box. I also found that it fits in the venture carrying bag that's made for the Tread, although it is a pretty tight fit. And I've cooked a bunch of pizzas and a few other items in both the Tread and the Arc Lite, and functionally, they're about the same. I don't think you'll notice a big difference in the cook in either one, and that makes sense because they're both 12-inch ovens, and they have the same lateral flame, which is made to mimic the way a wood fire would work in a standard pizza oven. Now the real trick is to see how long it takes to heat up, how hot it gets, and how long it takes to cool down. So let's jump to future Ryan for those test results. I found that the high temp results were pretty interesting, and I wanted to give you an update before it got dark and before we cool these things down. The Tread capped out about 850, but with the wind and different things, it was going between 800 and 850. This one eventually got up to just barely 800 degrees, and so it didn't get as hot as the other one. I thought it might have been the propane tanks, so I swapped them and then fired them back up, which is why you'll see a dip in the data, and the Arc Lite continued to come in just lower than the Gozney Tread, which was an absolute surprise for me. I would have thought that they would be right about the same. So with that, let's turn them off and see how quick they cool down. So here's how the data came out. And if you'd like to see the raw data, I've linked to it down in the description below so you can do your own analysis. For the preheat, I measured the time it took for the ovens to get up to 700 degrees Fahrenheit, and for the Gozney Tread, that took 14.5 minutes, and the Arc Lite did it in 20 minutes. For the cool down, I'm saying that 150 degrees Fahrenheit at the stone is the point where you'd start thinking about putting it in your car after you're done cooking. The Gozney Tread got there in 38 minutes, and the Arc Lite took 43 minutes, so just a 5-minute difference. And I'm betting that the longer preheat and cool down times for the Arc Lite were because it has more thermal mass, and that gave it the advantage of having more consistent temperatures once it got up to its max. So which one of the two gets the buy? If you're like me and want portability in a small pizza oven, then the Gozney Tread is well worth the extra cost. But if you just want to make really good pizza in your backyard and the extra inch of space is worth it to you, then the Arc Lite is a perfect option and is a really good deal. But if you want to learn more about either of these ovens, I've linked to my original reviews for both right over here.